Welcome to Meaningfulness, Engineering Purpose in a Complex World podcast series. I'm Djeff B., Principal Architect at Meaningfulness Media Group, where we build rigorous frameworks to uncover objective meaning through authentic connection, ethical systems thinking, and responsible stewardship in an age of AI and informational chaos. If you're seeking evidence-based insights on philosophy, psychology, and human flourishing, you're in the right place. Let's begin.
All right, today we're tackling a huge idea, a radical new way of thinking about free will. We're going to dive into a technical report that suggests we should move the whole conversation away from philosophy and into the world of practical engineering. You know, for centuries, the whole debate around free will has been completely stuck. It's always the same two options. Either our choices are some kind of magic, or they're just an illusion and we're all puppets. It's a really unproductive loop. But what if there's a third option? So, this new paper comes along and says we should just retire that old, clunky concept of free will and upgrade our thinking to a technical, measurable model called functional agency. And this is a huge shift. We're moving from thinking of free will as some metaphysical power to seeing it as a technical process. From a simple yes or no switch to a continuous spectrum, and from a concept used to assign blame to a tool for actually engineering our own sovereignty.
Okay, let's dive into this new framework. The core idea is to stop treating the human mind like some kind of unsolvable mystery and start looking at it for what it is, a really, really high-resolution, self-modeling computational system.
So, what in the world is functional agency? Well, the paper defines it as the capacity to be an irreducible causal origin. Now that sounds super complicated, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. It just means that your unique internal thought process is the only place where your future choice gets calculated. You can't figure out the answer by looking at atoms from the Big Bang. You have to actually run the simulation inside your own head. And here's a crucial point. Your agency isn't some on-off switch. It's not like you either have it or you don't. It's more like a dimmer switch. It's a variable resource, a measurable depth of computation that can actually grow when you learn or shrink when you're under pressure. Okay, but if we're a computational system, what stops an algorithm from just perfectly predicting everything we're going to do? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the core mechanism, which the paper calls an incomputability firewall.
The first key to this firewall is a concept from computer science called computational irreducibility. And all that means is that for a truly complex thought process, there's no cheat sheet, there's no shortcut. The only way to know the answer is to actually do the thinking. You can't just fast forward it.
Now here's where it gets wild. What happens when you become aware of a prediction about yourself? Let's say an algorithm predicts you'll buy a coffee. The moment you see that prediction, you can decide not to, right? Just to spite it. Well, now the algorithm would have to predict you predicting it, which creates this crazy infinite Hall of Mirrors effect that just collapses on itself. And this illustrates the core of the firewall perfectly. This barrier means perfect prediction is pretty much impossible unless the predictor violates your autonomy. It would have to hide its prediction from you, physically take away your other choices, or become so complex that it's basically running a full copy of your brain, which kind of defeats the purpose of a predictive shortcut, doesn't it? This brings us to the real gold standard of prediction, one that holds up even after it's been revealed to you. And when you think about any complex human choice, this almost never happens. The second you know the prediction, the whole game changes.
So, if our agency is a measurable resource, how do we measure it? Well, the paper gives us a really practical four-part model. Think of these as the core specs for your mental operating system. First up, we've got your temporal horizon. This is all about your capacity for long-term planning. A low horizon means you're just reacting to whatever is right in front of you. But a high horizon, that means you're simulating consequences weeks, months, or even years into the future.
Next is counterfactual width, and this is basically the breadth of your imagination. How many different what-if scenarios can you generate? Someone with a wide search space can come up with totally novel solutions, making them far less predictable than someone stuck on a single path.
Third, there's historical integration. This is what makes sure your decisions are grounded in your unique identity, your memories, your values, your whole life story. A high degree of integration means you're not just a product of the current moment, but a continuation of everything you've ever been.
And the final piece, which is absolutely crucial, is model fidelity. I mean, you can have the deepest, most imaginative thought process in the world, but if your map of the world is wrong, your choices won't be very effective.
This is your truth-seeking component. How accurate is your grasp on reality? So you put it all together, and your effective agency is basically the product of your internal processing depth. That's your planning, your options, your experience, multiplied by your connection to reality. And notice it's a multiplier. That's key. If your accuracy drops to 0, your entire agency collapses right along with it. And of course, this agency isn't static. It has a life cycle. An infant starts out as highly predictable. Then, through adolescence, we start to bootstrap our own sovereignty. And hopefully, we become computationally irreducible as adults. But this isn't a guarantee. Agency can also decline later in life, through dependency or cognitive impairment.
Okay, so let's bring it all home. What does this all mean for you and me right now, living in an age of AI and predictive algorithms that are designed to make us more predictable?
The paper proposes something called a sovereignty Turing test. Basically, if an algorithm on your social media feed can reliably steer your behavior with a simple nudge, well, if it works over 95% of the time, then in that specific context, you've become computationally reducible. You've effectively outsourced your deliberation. And this gets to a really critical point. Freedom, or agency, isn't some birthright that can never be taken away. It's a developmental achievement. It's a capacity that has to be built, exercised, and then actively defended. So this brings us to the most practical takeaway of all, a concept the paper calls agency hygiene. Think of it like mental fitness. It's the conscious, daily practice of strengthening those 4 vectors we talked about. Seeking accurate information, planning for the long term, imagining alternatives, and connecting with your core values. All to resist being easily and predictably nudged. And that leaves us with a final, really provocative thought. In a world that is becoming obsessed with speed, efficiency, and algorithmic prediction, maybe your messy, slow, computationally expensive, and deeply human deliberation isn't a flaw to be optimized away. Maybe it's the very source of your sovereignty. Maybe it's your superpower. The only question is, how are you going to protect it?
That's all for this episode. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. If these ideas resonate, continue your journey toward objective meaning and authentic connection at meaningfulness.com.au, where you'll find materials and resources to engineer purpose in your life. Until next time, let's build something meaningful.